So I know this is a battle of undefeated versus undefeated, but it almost feels like Richardson Hitchins isn't undefeated, right? Because of how that fight against Gustavo Lemos went down. What's good? It's Woog. We've got Liam Paro, 25 wins and 0 losses, defending his IBF light welterweight title. That's the 140-pound title against Richardson Hitchins, 18 wins and 0 losses. It's funny because if these two were to have fought like a year ago, Richardson Hitchins would have been a significant favorite. Liam Paro, I feel, had the reputation at the time about a year ago when he was fighting, let's say, Brock Jarvis, like basically up to the time he stopped Montana Love. The idea with Liam Paro was probably that he's a really good regional fighter, you know, coming out of Australia. But when he starts fighting world-class fighters, that's when he's going to take his L's. But then we see his back-to-back fights, a stoppage of Montana Love. I actually attended that one because it was on the Devin Haney versus Regis Prograis undercard. So he stops Montana Love, and then he beats Subriel Matias, who was like a 5.5 to 1 favorite. I came this close to betting on Paro just because of the odds. Like in my actual prediction video, I did say that I thought Subriel Matias was gonna win the fight via late stoppage, but because I thought that Liam Paro had a decent shot, and again, the odds were 5.5 to 1, I was really considering betting on Liam Paro, but I didn't. And Liam Paro ended up winning a unanimous decision in Matias's home country of Puerto Rico. So this upcoming Paro versus Hitchins fight, where again, Paro's the champ, although this is Aussie versus American, this fight is taking place in San Juan, Puerto Rico. So this is gonna be 2 consecutive fights where Liam Paro is fighting in Puerto Rico. And I'd imagine that if he beats Hitchins, that Puerto Rico is going to kind of be an adopted country for Liam Paro, and he will really be a hot commodity in the boxing world. If he can rattle off wins against Subriel Matias and Richardson Hitchins, both of whom were have been ranked in the top 10 in the division over the past couple of years. Whereas right now, Richardson Hitchins, his stock probably has never been lower because, again, of how he struggled with Gustavo Lemos, who hurt him visibly multiple times. And heading into that scorecard, it was really anyone's guess who was going to win that one. I kind of thought that Gustavo Lemos, I know that Hitchins won a lot of the quieter rounds, and he really had to dig deep and fight. They talk about, let's see if he's got that dog in him. Richardson Hitchins had to show that because of how much he was getting pressed and pressured against Gustavo Lemos, who we just saw get stopped in pretty spectacular fashion against Keyshawn Davis. So Richardson Hitchins was coming off of a very impressive, wide unanimous decision win against former top contender Jose Zepeda. So Richardson Hitchins went from his stock being at its highest after the win against Zepeda to his stock being probably at its lowest after his very next fight against Lemos. So you want to talk about recency bias, but that's where we are right now. And right now, Liam Paro is the champion, but he's also a slight betting favorite over Richardson Hitchins. Again, if this fight were to have taken place a year ago, I would imagine Richardson Hitchins would probably be at least like a -175, maybe a -210, something like that. But again, Liam Paro has really showed out over these last couple of fights. So we've got a 5'8.5" southpaw in Liam Paro against a 5'10" orthodox fighter in Hitchins. Hitchins has a 74-inch reach to Paro's 71-inch reach. Paro, he's a very effective counterpuncher, but he's athletic enough to where he's kind of feinting his way into position to where even if you don't make the first move, he will happily jab his way into range and throw some big shots and start letting his hands go. He can counterpunch well, but he's not necessarily having to wait on you. He can get the party started himself. Just look at how he continued to really take the fight to Subriel Matias, especially throughout the first half of that fight. Yes, Matias is a notoriously slow starter, but man, Liam Paro really stood his ground and was just throwing way more punches than Subriel Matias, who I usually consider to be a bit of a popcorn machine of a puncher, to where once Subriel Matias starts getting rolling, his punches start sounding like you're popping a bag of popcorn, like he just starts letting his hands go, putting combinations together. Before you know it, you're getting hit by inside uppercuts, hooks with both hands. It just starts getting nasty. Liam Paro stood his ground and ended up, again, beating Subriel Matias, one of the champions, took his title via unanimous decision. And yes, there were moments where Matias started looking like Matias and started looking like he might have Paro hurt, but Paro fought through that as well. So he's really elevated his reputation. I'm just wondering if the recency bias has really taken a foothold to where we're missing something that might be very evident when these two get together. I'm thinking that Richardson Hitchins, who his game is very range controlling heavy. He's not a big puncher. Like out of his 18 wins, 7 have come via knockout. Whereas with Liam Paro, out of his 25 wins, 15 have come via knockout. So Paro is the puncher between these two. But I wouldn't be surprised if Richardson Hitchins kind of starts outclassing Liam Paro. Again, Liam Paro is pretty crafty. It's not like he's just a slugger. Far from it. He's usually outboxing his opponents. Like, he's a boxer puncher. Like when he was fighting Montana Love likes to get on his back foot, likes to look for opportunities where you start coming in and then he counters you coming in. Liam Paro was setting things up with feints, with jabs, with going to the body, jabbing to the body, and setting up big punches to where when Montana Love would try to come in to counter, Paro would actually counter the counter and hurt Montana Love repeatedly, dropped him repeatedly, finished him once again. I know Montana Love had that DQ loss against Steve Spark, but Liam Paro was really the first to like beat Montana Love, and it was via stoppage. So I've really been impressed with Liam Paro, and there is a lot of reason to think that he could beat Richardson Hitchins. Like I could really see him just kind of taking the fight to Hitchins, winning round over round, where people are like saying like, damn, okay, anytime now, when is Hitchins gonna start separating himself on the scorecard, working behind a jab, keeping Liam Paro on the outside, and just showing why Richardson Hitchins was such a hot commodity. Like he used to be managed by Floyd Mayweather. He was a buzzing name. It's been a buzzing name. Now he's with Matchroom, but again, his reputation took a hit with that last fight. But I think that this is going to be a bit of a market correction. I think that because of the recency bias, the opinions of these two has really swayed. And I think that Richardson Hitchins, sometimes we see this. We see somebody like really underperform and then they greatly overperform or show you what they've really got, and you see the vice versa. You see somebody who's got a great couple of performances where their stock starts elevating, and then in the next fight they get brought way down to earth. We see that all the time. And because things are like, I'm surprised that we continue to do this recency bias thing, because again, we see the roller coaster of a lot of people's careers. We start seeing them perform well, and then we start placing expectations based on those recent performances, and then the very next fight, the person might be hardly recognizable. It's like, damn, this person is not nearly as good as I just thought that they were. Or what I think is going to be the case with Hitchins, it's going to be, it might be one of those y'all must have forgot. Not like he ever proved anything huge. Yes, he beat Jose Zepeda and he's won a couple pretty good fights, but he hasn't really started fighting the current crop of the upper echelon elite fighters. I mean, Zepeda was that a couple years prior, but ever since that Prograis fight, Zepeda, I think, has taken a big dip, and now he like lost via stoppage to Dalton Smith. So no, I don't think Zepeda is what he was. And Zepeda, because of Hitchins' ability to control range, Zepeda looked like he had to swim across a moat to even get to Hitchins. I don't think that it's going to necessarily be the case here. I think that this is actually going to be a really close fight with Paro and Hitchins. I'm just saying, Hitchins often has the ability to control range and control distance like that. And no, he's not a devastating puncher, but he does punch enough to get the opponent's respect and to get them to think twice before coming in. I think that he's going to be able to outbox Paro from distance. I do think Paro is going to be catching him with some nice left hands once he gets the angles right. But I think that between jabbing to the body, throwing a couple combinations while maintaining his defensive construct and being defensively responsible, clinching and tying up when he needs to, I think that Richardson Hitchins is actually going to take this from Liam Paro. I understand the rationale behind going with Paro here, and I was tempted to. Like, before I actually started doing this video, I was thinking, yeah, I could really see Paro beating Hitchins by decision. I could even see this looking like a 50-50 draw-ish fight, which this might result in a draw. and I can see it looking like a draw, and then the fight going to Paro. He's the champion. He's got the buzzing name. I think he's got the more exciting style. So if it looks like he's more aggressive than Hitchins, I can see judges awarding close rounds to Liam Paro because of his style of fighting. But I think that Hitchins is going to have his career best performance in this fight against Liam Paro. And I think that Richardson Hitchins is about to become the new IBF 140-pound champion. Yeah, I'm going with Hitchins in this one. But yeah, let me know your thoughts about Liam Paro versus Richardson Hitchins. This is like a buzzing division. I think that 154 is probably the best division, non-heavyweight at least, in the sport right now. But don't sleep on 140. I mean, we've got Jack Catterall. We still have Teofimo Lopez. Devin Haney, I'd imagine, is going to come back, and I don't think he's going to go right into 147. So we'll see what happens there. Ryan Garcia, who the hell knows? But we've got a lot of good 140-pound fighters. We just had Arnold Barboza beat Jose Ramirez. That was a sea change in the division. We just had Jack Catterall beating Regis Prograis. We've still got Subriel Matias in the mix. We've got the WBA champion, Jose Valenzuela, who beat Pitbull Cruz. We've got Pitbull Cruz. We've got Alberto Puello, who beat Gary Antoine Russell and is now the WBC 140-pound champion, with Devin Haney, I believe, being the champion in recess. And we still have Gary Antoine Russell. I really like what I'm seeing from Dalton Smith. So yeah, 140 is kind of popping right now. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this IBF title fight between Liam Paro and Richardson Hitchins in the comments. And also, don't forget, we also have the other fight card, which is the top-ranked doubleheader. I just issued a preview on the main event, which is the rematch between Emmanuel Navarrete and Oscar Valdez for Navarrete's 130-pound WBO title, and then the co-main event being Rafael Espinoza versus Robesi Ramirez in their rematch for the title that Espinoza won off of Robesi Ramirez late last year. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this IBF 140-pound title fight, which is again taking place in Puerto Rico, in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.